became a career firefighter with the Howard County Department of Fire and Rescue Service, the chief of the medical division, or EMS, the unofficial historian of the Howard County Department of Fire and Rescue Services. Over 65,000 digital images and newspaper articles, magazine articles, etc. Podcast 24-22. The next few podcasts, I'm deviating a little bit from some of the other podcasts I've done as far as topics. What I'll be doing is featuring various areas of Howard County and from a historical perspective of old-time photos. Some of these photos start around 50 years ago. Some go back 160 years ago, and I'll probably even have a couple that are 200 years old. I'll be doing these podcasts by districts of Howard County. The first district will be the Elkridge area. Second district will be Ellicott City. Third district will be West Friendship. Fourth district will be Lisbon. The fifth district will be Clarksville. And the 6th district will be Elkridge. Today, this particular podcast is going to be featuring the Elkridge area. The first picture is back during the Civil War in the 1860s. An encampment near Relay. Union soldiers were sent there to protect the Thomas Viaduct Bridge. And they were there basically for the duration of the war. But this is just an image showing the soldiers in an encampment near Relay. I don't know whether it's on the Howard County side or the Baltimore County side. This image, which is actually a painting, is just showing troop encampment, again, near the Viaduct Hotel in Relay. And again, this is about an image dating back to about 1860. This image, taken around 1950, showing the infamous Route 1. Route 1 started up north, I believe, as far as Maine, and ended in Key West. A section of Route 1 ran through eastern Howard County. Route 1, when it was initially built, was sort of the expressway of the time, getting people from north to south. It's a 4-lane highway in sections. I'm sure it was a 3-lane highway, but it was sort of a direct route, even though it ran through multiple towns. This particular image is just showing the Route 1 running through Howard County, and I believe just showing two different areas. The image to the left is Route 1 crossing the Patapsco River Bridge, heading into Baltimore County. And as you can see in the distance is actually the Calvert Distillery building. Had its own infamy as a famous structure back in the day. On the right is another image. It's Saint's One Spot Hill. I don't know whether that's the infamous One Spot, the flea and dog powder, but again, it's indicating that that's another area that was certainly a hotbed for motor vehicle accidents. The Elkridge Meat Market, dating back to 1908, as it is in this picture, was a local establishment that provided meat for the area, especially for those of various means that had the money to get sometimes the best cut, the best meat, etc. Not sure where it was located on Main Street, Elkridge, just not sure. So if any of you know, you let me know and I'll amend this particular image. This image is of the Bowman Bridge as it crossed the Patapsco River in Ilchester. Behind the picture would have been the tunnel that the B&O Railroad ran through, came through the tunnel, came out, crossed the Patapsco River, and made its way up to Ellicott City. The buildings that you see directly in front of you are St. Mary's College, which was a substantial structure, as you can see, and maintained its existence until the late 60s, 1970 or so, before they abandoned the structure, and it eventually was the site of several spectacular fires, and again the late 60s and 70s. Just a painting depicting the Avalon Rolling Mills. This image is of the Avalon rolling mills. There were quite a few factories that had been set up along the Patapsco River, ideal for several reasons. One, the currents that were set up by the Patapsco River made it ideal for water-powered machinery. Also, many of the ingredients needed to make iron could have been found within the valley and nearby lands. This particular picture would have been in the early 1800s. And as I'm reading the caption, and you can stop the video at any time to actually read the entire caption, but indicated that they had 24 nail-making machines were on hand to crank out the product of nails and other products. In 1845, there was a major fire that obviously destroyed the building, and then 1868, there was a major, probably one of the worst floods in the Patapsco Valley that washed away remnants of the structure. Again, an image of Route 1. The top picture is a diner in the Halethorpe area, just inside Baltimore County, back in the day. The bottom picture is of Route 1 at Old Washington Boulevard. And again, if you can make it out, you can see way in the distance the Calvert Distillery. Some of the structures on the right-hand side, I'm not sure whether they're still there or not. You can see a building on the left-hand side just before the railroad tracks, and that is currently Daniel's Bar, which is a unique structure unto itself. A biker bar with stools on the outside that you can sit on, order drinks, and have a good time, and then drive away, hopefully. Around 1890, this picture is 1890, showing the Thomas Viaduct Bridge. And then on the other side of the Thomas Viaduct Bridge is the Viaduct Hotel. In the foreground is part of Elkridge. There was a siding of that offloaded product. You can see a road that is no longer in existence that was crossing the tracks and over to Lawyers Hill Road. And you can see some manufacturing building there to the right of the picture. Some of the other photos I'll be showing you do show close-ups of those buildings, but this is an image of that area in the 1890s. Another image showing that same crossing, a close-up of the crossing. You can see a train has just passed. You can also see several individuals on the right-hand side that are gathered there watching the train go by. And if you look closely at the Thomas Viaduct Bridge, you're actually going to see another steam engine coming towards the picture here. So this one sort of captured two steam engines traveling through the Elkridge area over the Thomas Viaduct Bridge. Just a picture of a bridge in the Orange Grove area of the Patapsco River, north of Elkridge. And this particular picture was taken in 1910. If you read the captions, like I said, you can actually stop the video and you can take a look at the verbiage about this particular image. And actually, as I'm reading this, it was believed the mill was named Orange Grove for the Osage orange trees that grew in the area in the 1860s. I used to call that particular tree and the fruit that it bared, I used to call them hedgy balls. We used to roll in their cars, etc., but that was another time. The Patapsco River was home to several mills. C.A. Gambrel Mill, Patapsco Flouring Mill, and other structures that were made conducive because of the Patapsco River and its ability to power various mills for flour, for iron, etc. This is an image of, again, Route 1 at Old Washington Boulevard. We're looking north. You can see the B&O Railroad Bridge crossing Route 1 in the center. And actually over top of that, in the distance, is the Calvert Distillery. On the left-hand side is what eventually become Daniel's Bar. And on the right-hand side are several structures that may still exist today, although some of you will have to confirm that for me, but may exist today, but have changed hands and businesses over the years. Just an image of the Orange Grove Hanging Bridge, which has been in existence since at least 1936. And the bridge has been reconstructed several times, and I know I have, and many of you have probably walked across that bridge in the past. Apparently, as you look at the image, there was a small village on the other side. We're looking towards Baltimore County. Howard County is on the near side of the bridge. And apparently it's saying back in 1936, the village had 7 houses, a one-room school, and a church were located on the opposite side. There were several incidents that caused the bridge to come down, ice flows, and other tragedies. Actually, one time the bridge actually collapsed, killing one child. But this particular image, Orange Grove Hanging Bridge, back of 1936. Another image of Route 1 and the infamous Dead Man's Curve. This particular picture was taken around 1924 to 1930, showing the original configuration of Route 1 at Dead Man's Curve. and then the lower picture showing where they had relocated Route 1 so that Dead Man's Curve was not going to be quite as deadly. You can also see in the top picture where Route 1 originally went. You can see the road off to the left, and that particular picture has been blocked off. And then the bottom picture showing where they made some major adjustment to Dead Man's Curve. The B&O Railroad is a mainstay of Howard County, both the eastern section, which traversed between Baltimore and Washington, passengers and freight, and the northern section of the B&O Railroad, which went along the Patapsco River up to Mount Airy and then ultimately to Brunswick, Point of Rocks in Frederick County. But the top picture is of the Elkridge station as it existed back in the day. The bottom picture is of Annapolis Junction station, probably where Hinkle's was at one time, famous restaurant that many people remember going to. I certainly remember going to. When you ordered a sandwich from Hinkle's, it seemed like you got half the cow or half the pig. It was enough of a big sandwiches, enough for several people, not enough for several meals, but I digress, and I'll discuss that later on when we talk about Savage, the Savage District. A car repair and dealership of Downs Brothers on Washington Boulevard. This image was taken in 1932. Downs Brothers Chevrolet and dealership. And again, I'm not exactly sure where this was. Some of you viewing the image may very well be able to tell me the address or a better location. And you can see the old style gas pumps there to the right of the picture. So just kind of interesting. Again, just another picture, same picture, but just a little larger. This image was taken in the early 1900s. What this is showing, gentlemen who were in the business of plucking willows as they emerged from a water source, a race, and these willows would then be woven into baskets, etc. Actually, the mill race, where these seedling willows were grown, was built from Deep Run to Furnace Avenue. By the 1920s, the business basically failed and folded up. The area where the mill race and willows had once been was filled in and then was called Race Road. Again, another picture is showing the several workers harvesting the willows that would eventually be used to make wicker baskets and furniture, etc. One of the many establishments, hotels along Route 1 back in the day were very, very frequent. Many hotels popped up because of the motor vehicle traffic that was then using Route 1. This was just another example. The Tip Top Motor Court. This image was taken about 1953 and was just one of many motels that grew up. Each had their own uniqueness. This one featuring air conditioning, beauty rest mattresses, televisions in every room, and city water. So that was kind of a unique thing back in the day. This image taken in 1920s, in the 20s. This particular gas station was on Old Washington Road, not sure of the exact location. Some of you folks that will be looking at this may be able to assist me with that. These gas pumps that we're looking at were supposedly the first gas pumps that were located between Baltimore and Washington. And according to the dialogue, gas prices back then were like 30 cents a gallon back in 1920. By 1950, there was a gas war going on and a gallon of gas was 27 cents. So go figure. Claude Sacker, who was the chief of Elkridge Volunteer Fire Department, was diverse in his endeavors. Ran one of the hotels, possibly one of the no-tell motels. He was in the charter fishing business out of North Beach in Calvert County, and also was responsible for setting up Cindy's soft serve. I believe Cindy was his daughter, if I remember correctly. Very popular, and I'm not sure whether it's still there or not, but it was a very popular location. This particular picture from the Elkridge area, again, in the 1800s. Again, you can see the Thomas Viaduct Bridge. On the other side of the bridge is the Viaduct Hotel. And on this side of the bridge in Howard County were various businesses. You will see with some of the pictures that various businesses occupied the land to the right. This particular business was telephones. In the early days of telephones, they manufactured telephones. That built in another era. That area in another area was a grain mill, and I'm sure several other uses. This is back, I'm assuming, around 1900. I may be able to confirm that a little bit later. Again, another picture of the Thomas Viaduct taken from the Baltimore County side. looking into Howard County. Again, you can see the Thomas Viaduct Bridge. On the other side is Howard County. On this side is Baltimore County. You can see the railroad tracks that would be heading up towards Ellicott City to Mount Airy and then to Point of Rocks. But the Union Army had a detachment there during the entire war to protect that bridge. That was an absolute lifeline at that point. So it was a priority for the Union Army to protect that. And we can see an encampment and cannons and what have you at the ready should there have been an attack. There never was, but Union soldiers were there for the duration of the war. Again, just another picture, actually the same picture, just enlarged. And you can see the Thomas Viaduct Bridge, the Elkridge area, and the troops, the cannon and caissons that were protecting the Thomas Viaduct Bridge. This is a picture of downtown Elkridge back in the day. Looking at it, this should be probably around 1900. This particular picture is showing Main Street, which was going to be part of the Baltimore and Washington Turnpike, short section of the 37 miles that it encompassed. Folks were required to pay a toll to proceed. And according to the commentary on the picture, this is laid out in the 19th century, the early 19th century. Certainly don't see any modern cars there, so that's probably correct. And again, I'm not sure exactly where this is. Again, individuals looking at this may be able to add some additional information as to the exact location. This is just the Thomas Viaduct Hotel that was just on the Baltimore County side, and I'll have a whole section of images later on about the Thomas Viaduct Hotel. In the late 1800s was when the actual Thomas Viaduct Hotel was built and maintained itself for about 60 years or so. It was a prominent place to stop. With passengers coming out of Baltimore. They could stop there for the night before they continued the journey either to Washington, D.C., that's the tracks to the left, or head west along the Patapsco River into Points West, and that would have been the spur or the section of rail that was just to the right of the building. Meeting House on Lawyers Hill Road apparently was called the Lawn. This structure, known as the Lawn, was built in the mid-1860s. Was a meeting place for local residents to get together and to discuss things, although there was absolutely no talking about politics once inside. Again, just a larger picture of the building itself. A prominent physician back in the day was Dr. Brumbaugh. A couple pictures, one as top one is Dr. Brumbaugh as he was in the military, and the bottom picture as he was the community doctor. He was the doctor for Elkridge for many years. Some people viewing this video may even remember him being their doctor. He was sort of an old country doctor. Everyone went to him. He made house calls and was just quite an individual. He was someone that the entire community adopted and was just a fine individual. As you can see, office visits were $2, and if he had to make a house call, it was $3. A great man. Another major attraction in the area was the Elkridge Drive-In Theater. As you can see, this is back in the day, and just an advertisement talking about the Elkridge Drive-In Theater and the couple shows that were going to be viewed and projected that particular evening. This had to be in the 1960s or earlier when the Elkridge Drive-In Theater was in operation. Another picture of the Drive-In Theater, again back in the day with multiple entrances and what have you. This was on Route 1 just north of Montgomery Road. Another picture of downtown Elkridge. Main Street is showing the street itself wasn't paved. Just back then it was a muddy road of Main Street. And that particular section was also part of the Washington Turnpike. Many shops would line the road. There's at least one building that I think still survives to this day. And again, individuals looking at this may be able to tell me where these buildings were located and exactly what section of Main Street this was on. Again, back to the Elkridge Meat Market we discussed earlier. This is an image in the 1800s of the Hockley gristmill. In the lower right-hand corner is the portion of the Thomas Viaduct Bridge. So this particular mill, the Hockley gristmill was just on the Howard County side. As I said earlier, this particular space later on became part of the telephone company. This building had been raised to provide space for that. You can see the gristmill, the chute structure. You can see just to the center right a diagonal chute. That was where the trains would pull up on the B&O Railroad to a siding, stop, and they would offload the grain, and that grain would slide down that chute and into the mill itself, be ground up, and then would been loaded on wagons and taken to market. Again, this would have been in the 1800s, late 1800s. Again, this is just a picture looking at the Hockley grist mill from another direction. You can see the mill, you can see the chute where grain would be offloaded. Potentially that is what that one rail car is doing. Will be offloaded, slide down and into the mill, ground up, and then shipped out. Right through where that grist mill is in this picture, that's where Levering Avenue would have gone. In this particular picture, eventually Levering Avenue would have gone right through where the mill is and underneath the Thomas Viaduct Bridge itself. There were certainly famous individuals that resided in the Elkridge area. One such gentleman was Jack Merson of the Merson clan of Elkridge. He was quite a gifted athlete and had actually been signed as a shortstop for the then Pirates San Diego Padres. And this was in the early 50s, I do believe. And again, I'm sure that some of the Merson clan can comment on this and provide some additional information. From the Thomas Viaduct Bridge looking towards Ellicott City, this was just the looking north from the Thomas Viaduct Bridge towards Ellicott City, just a low-level dam that was providing a water source for factory below the dam. This is around the mid-1920s or so. Again, a picture depicting individuals with the Civil War. This image is showing military personnel from the Union Army in encampment near the Relay House in June of 1861. And again, these were the folks that would have been protecting the Thomas Viaduct Bridge for any potential attack by the Confederate Army. Just another image of an establishment, a gasoline station on Route 1. Not sure exactly where it was in Elkridge, but again, gas station, as you can see. And in this particular image, it's a Sunoco station, it appears. And the building right in back of it was, I guess, a version of the early convenience stores that we see nowadays with gas stations. And again, I'm not sure exactly where this was. And if some of you folks who look at this can shed some light, that would be great as to the exact location. Again, just another image of the Thomas Viaduct Bridge, Thomas Viaduct Hotel, and another business or businesses to the right that were in effect at that particular time in the around 1900 or so. Again, just an image showing another business that occupied the land there adjacent to the Thomas Viaduct Bridge on the Howard County side, apparently manufacturing telephones. In this particular photograph, we are seeing images of two trains, one a locomotive that was prevalent at the time, apparently taken around 1900. The top picture. The bottom picture was depicted as the train of the future, as taken on July 10th, 1900. The design, etc., was going to be the bullet train of the future. I'm not sure what became of it, whether it was a concept that took hold or not, but just shows another type of train sitting on the Thomas Viaduct Bridge back in the 1900s. Again, an image showing Union troops standing there. I'm assuming most of these folks were probably officers, given that there are swords in their hands. But these are Union troops that were detailed to the Thomas Viaduct Bridge, and their assignment was to protect the bridge from any invasion of the Confederates back in the day. The soldiers are standing on the Baltimore County side, with Howard County over in the far distance. Again, manufacturing business that was located just on the Howard County side of the Thomas Viaduct Bridge. You can see the set of stairs in the lower right-hand corner going up to the tracks. This is yet another building that occupied the area. There have been several businesses that were there. Buildings were torn down, new buildings were put up, and different manufacturing processes. The Levering Avenue, the current Levering Avenue, would have been and coming around just to the right of the buildings and just to the back of the building closest to the camera. That's where the current levering avenue would be. As you have been reviewing these images, if you all have, any of you have other images that you would like to forward to me so that I can add future viewing, I would be greatly, greatly appreciative of that. Always like to accept new photos of a historical nature about Howard County. Please use your remaining heartbeats wisely and not waste a single precious one.